Some people argue that in this day and age, hunting is no longer necessary and that it is barbaric and unrefined. I, on the other hand, hold in opposition the view that now, more than ever, ethical hunting is becoming increasingly important. For tens of thousands of years, humans have been hunting to survive, longer in fact than they have not. I argue that hunting not only connects us more closely to the natural world, but also instills in us a respect and reverence towards the foods that we are eating and the life that must be taken to sustain our day-to-day lives. By intentionally pulling back the curtains on where my food comes from, I now appreciate food more than I ever have, and I have gained a profound respect for all of those past and present who hunt to live and to provide for their families. Over the last few years, there has been a resurgence of hunting right here in Northwest Ohio and all across the United States, and I believe it to be for the better. Hunting not only requires a great deal of skill, but also demands a strong willingness to withstand adverse conditions and to push yourself out of your comfort zone to achieve the pursuit of putting food on your table. Now, with that being said, I would like you to follow my friend Bill and me on our journey as we set out to do just that. To begin our endeavor meant waking up well before dawn, layering on all the warmest thermal gear we could find, and strapping on headlamps to cut through the pre-dawn darkness as Bill and I trekked across the muddy fields of Northwest Ohio to silently wait in the frigid temperatures, high winds, and extreme solitude of our chosen hunting spots. As the sun began to rise each morning, our blood began pumping in the hopes that we would be able to bag one of America's most iconic game animals and fill our freezers with some of the best meat around. Hunting takes a great deal of planning, an immense love for the outdoors, and an unbreakable will to withstand whatever nature has to offer. But it also rewards those who participate with countless hours of solitude and the sheer bliss of simply being outside.
This right here is what it's all about. How often do you get to sit outside in a snowstorm? Even if I don't see a deer today, this is pretty badass.
Once Bill and I were settled into our hunting blinds, the waiting game began. Now, as any hunter knows, hunting takes a Herculean amount of patience. As the minutes, hours, and days roll by, you are constantly thinking to yourself, I know that any minute now, the biggest buck I've ever seen in my life is going to be popping out of that wood line. And it is this thought that keeps you watching and waiting on the edge of your seat, even through the bitter cold and the mind-numbing silence. But these are all things that come with the territory of the sport, and you have to be willing to accept them.
There's no way I can make that shot. It's easily 250, 300 yards. I might be accurate 50 yards with a shotgun. I'm gonna keep an eye on her. Maybe she'll head this way, but it's not looking like it. Looks like she's starting to head the other way.
Before you head out into the woods, though, it is very important to maintain your hunting equipment. This means carefully taking apart your gun, cleaning and oiling the barrel and all exposed metal, inspecting all the parts of the weapon, making sure everything is in good working order before you head out into the elements. You should treat your weapon as an extension of your body, and if you take good care of it, it will in turn take good care of you. The last thing you need after all of the work you put in and all of the money you've spent is to blow your opportunity at a shot on a deer by having your gun or bow malfunction due to misuse and abuse. If you make sure to follow these rules and to keep your weapon well maintained, it will last you a lifetime and then some, just like the 12-gauge shotgun that was handed down to me by my dad. And one last thing, it never hurts to test fire your gun before you head out, simply because it's fun.
It's gonna be really loud.
not sure if you guys can hear it, but there are gunshots going off everywhere surrounding me in a full 360 circle around this woodlot. There's a frenzy going on, and I'm really hoping some of these shots are scaring deer towards me and Bill. Really keeping an eye out in all directions, because at this point they could come out of anywhere. So I'm really hoping they scare something up, because we haven't had much luck this season.
Overall, Bill and I spent over 8 days watching, waiting, and hoping that we would reach some middle ground between luck and skill. The time spent out there was amazing, and we got to see things that most people wish that they had the chance to experience. All the early mornings, long hours, and muddy treks were definitely worth it.
That is a freaking baby great horned owl right over my head. Holy shit. This is awesome.
As the sun began to set on our last day, we had to admit defeat, but none of this was in vain.
Whether we're successful or not, I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. I can't count the number of sunrises and sunsets I've got to see, even through all the cold, windy days and these really warm, freakishly warm, hot days. I just love being out here. I seen a northern flicker. I saw a few downy woodpeckers and a bunch of various other birds. I've even seen a few deer. Luckily, none of them have been close enough to shoot, but I wouldn't trade this experience for the world. I absolutely love hunting. I get to spend days and days and hours of time just sitting out here in the woods, contemplating my life, contemplating, what I'm doing, and it just reinforces how much I love being outside. So if you've never hunted, I would highly recommend that you give it a shot, and that's 100% pun intended on that one. Whether it's archery hunting, whether it's bow hunting, whether it's crossbow hunting, get out here and give it a try, and I guarantee you'll fall in love with it just like I did.
So I'm sure everyone's heard the term $1. Well, that dates all the way back to the early 1700s when American settlers were trading with the Spanish for furs. Now, the Spanish going rate for one adult male buckskin was, as you probably have guessed by now, $1, and the rest is history. If you haven't noticed, deer are mostly active at dusk and dawn. During the rest of the day, they're just kind of chilling in the woods, hanging out, and making sure that they're probably not getting shot by hunters. They're like, any little movement, they're like. Believe it or not, in the early 1900s, deer were almost completely absent from the state of Ohio, but through heavy conservation work, reintroduction programs, and natural deer migrations, they've made a huge comeback. Yeah, they can see like movement, so that's why when you're hunting, you have to like not move. Deer, very similar to your average cameraman, are active in the morning and at night, and other than that, they don't really do much in the middle of the day. Believe it or not, deer have a field of vision that reaches 310 degrees, which basically means they can almost see behind their head, and they have a better sense of smell than dogs, which is insane. They can also turn their ears completely around, which just freaks me out. By 1995, the deer population reached over 500,000, and they're still doing great here today. Take It Outside is brought to you by Wood County Park District. Choose your own adventure.